I still remember the way the rain pressed against the windows that night, like it wanted to be let in. She was standing by the kitchen counter, sleeves rolled up, a half-empty glass of wine beside her. The light was soft, almost too kind, brushing over the curve of her neck, the faint crease near her mouth when she tried not to smile. Her name was Clara, my friend's aunt. But in that small house that smelled like wet wood and coffee, she didn't feel like anyone's aunt. I wasn't supposed to stay long. Just drop off the books I borrowed, say hello, leave before the weather got worse. But then her aunt, had said, almost absently, stay until the rain stops. And somehow that sounded less like an offer and more like a promise neither of us wanted to test. The clock ticked louder than it should have. She moved around the kitchen quietly, every motion deliberate, like she was aware of being watched but refused to acknowledge it. Her eyes flicked to me once, briefly, when I tried to help dry the dishes. "You don't have to," she said. "I know." I stayed anyway. She gave this small, defeated smile, the kind that says you don't get it yet. Her hair was slightly damp, and a loose strand clung to her cheek. Without thinking, I reached out. "Here," I murmured, brushing it away. She froze, not in fear, not even surprise, but in hesitation, as if she was measuring how much this moment might cost later. Her eyes found mine, and something in them softened, then vanished just as quickly. "Thank you," she said, but her voice was too quiet, too even. The rain outside thickened, hammering the roof in uneven rhythm. The house felt smaller with every drop. She poured me some wine without asking. I wasn't much of a drinker, but it felt wrong to refuse. Her fingers brushed mine when she handed me the glass, just a second, maybe less. But it was enough to knock something loose inside me. "So," she said, breaking the silence, "you're still studying literature?" "Trying to," I said. "Mostly reading things I don't understand until they start to sound like my own thoughts." That made her laugh. A real one, short and surprised. It slipped out before she could catch it, and I saw a glimpse of who she might have been years ago, before the calm and control. "I used to do that," she said, "when I thought everything in books could still happen to me." Her eyes lingered on the rain-streaked window, but she wasn't watching the storm. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time moved the way her voice did, slow, careful, with places it refused to go. Every now and then, she'd look at me like she was remembering something she hadn't decided to forget yet. I didn't know what to say, so I said almost nothing. Just small things about the storm, the smell of rain, how I used to love nights like this. She nodded, smiling faintly. "I used to too." Her voice trembled slightly on "used to." Then, a sound, a door creaking open from a hallway. We both turned. The old house exhaled, long and low. The rain didn't stop. She didn't look at me right away. Just stood there, still holding her glass, her fingers tightening around it. When she finally did meet my eyes, her expression was unreadable. Something between a warning and a wish. "Looks like it's not letting up," she said softly. And for the first time that night, I hoped it wouldn't up by morning. The rain had quieted to a soft drizzle, but neither of us moved to break the quiet. The living room smelled faintly of wet pine and coffee gone cold. Clara sat cross-legged on the couch, hair tied up, wearing the same sweater from last night. Loose at the collar, sleeves pushed up like she'd been thinking instead of sleeping. I was supposed to leave hours ago. My jacket hung by the door, still dripping. "Your aunt will think I'm holding you hostage," she said with a tired smile. "You kind of are," I said. She looked up sharply, but there was laughter behind it, thin, uncertain. "Don't say that. Someone might believe you. We talked about ordinary things. Her garden, my classes, the bookstore in town that smelled like dust and oranges. But every few sentences, something slipped through. A pause too long, a word too soft. She told me she'd been divorced for 8 years. Said like a date she'd memorized out habit, not pain. He'd left for someone younger, someone who didn't look tired all the time. "I wasn't angry," she said. "I just stopped trying to be interesting." Her voice caught there, and she covered it by reaching for a coffee. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. I just watched the way her fingers tightened around the mug, the small tremor in her hand before she set it down. At some point, she stood behind me, close enough for me to feel her breath against my neck. "You should get going before it rains again," she said quietly. But she didn't move away. The space between us felt wrong and right at the same time. I turned slightly, catching her reflection in the window. Her eyes lowered, her lips parted like she was caught between wanting to speak and refusing to. "Do you ever miss it?" I asked. She frowned. "Miss what?" "Being seen." The words slipped out before I could stop them. For a heartbeat, neither of us breathed. Then she laughed softly, a sound that wasn't laughter at all. "You shouldn't say things like that," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Why not?" "Because you're young enough to still mean them." She moved past me, brushing her hand against my shoulder as she did. It wasn't an accident. The touch lingered long after she was gone, just a slow burn where her fingers had been. When she came back with my jacket, her expression was calm again, but her eyes weren't. Something in them was unguarded now, tired but alive. "Next time," she said, holding the jacket out, "maybe just bring an umbrella." Her fingers grazed mine as I took it. Neither of us let go right away. Outside, the rain started again, and she didn't tell me to leave. That it was 3 days before I saw her again. The sky had cleared, but the air still smelled like rain when I stopped by her house to return the book I'd borrowed, the one I hadn't really read. My hand hovered at her gate for a long time before I pushed it open. She was in the yard, kneeling by a patch of lavender, hair pinned loosely, dirt on her palms. She looked up when she heard the latch click. "You again," she said, smiling, but her voice gave her away. Too careful, too light. "I owed you a visit," I said. "Or a reason?" I didn't answer. Neither did she. Inside, the house felt the same, quiet, half-shadowed, full of places to stand but not belong. I set the book on the table. "You didn't finish it," she said. "You could tell." She shrugged. "People who finish books don't bring them back this quickly." She moved past me to pour tea. I caught the scent of her perfume, faint, citrus, and something darker beneath it. The sound of the kettle filled the silence between us. "Eli, you can't keep," she started, then stopped herself. "Keep what?" Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. "Coming here like this." "Like what?" She didn't say. She didn't have to. A phone buzzed on the counter. The sound sliced through the quiet. She hesitated before checking the screen, then turned it face down, unread. I saw the name flash for half a second. Rachel. My friend. The reason I'd met her in the first place. Clara noticed that I'd seen. "It's nothing," she said quickly, voice too tight. I stepped closer before I thought about it. "You don't have to explain." "Maybe I do," she whispered. Her hand brushed mine. Again, that same electric stillness. I could feel the warmth of her skin, the tremor in her fingers. Then came the sound of a car door slamming outside. We froze. "Rachel," she breathed. For a moment, the world shrank, just heartbeat, breath, and the space between us. She stepped back, but not far enough. I could still feel her against me, the edge of her sweater brushing my arm. "Go," she said softly. "Through the back." "I don't want to." Her eyes darted toward the front door. "Eli, please." But when she said please, it didn't sound like a command. It sounded like surrender. We stood there too long, close enough to see the reflection of the window light in her pupils, close enough that one more breath would have been a confession. Her hand came up as if to push me away, but it never reached. Instead, her fingertips touched my collarbone, a ghost of a touch, trembling. Then the front door opened. "Clara," a voice called. We broke apart, almost violently. She turned toward the sound, fixing her hair, her voice steady again. "In here." But as Rachel stepped inside, Clara's hand was still shaking. And beneath the sound of small talk, our silence said everything that happened the night after Rachel's visit. Clara called to apologize, said she hadn't meant to make things awkward, that I shouldn't worry about what Rachel might have thought. I told her I wasn't. It wasn't true. When I showed up at her house again, she didn't look surprised. Just tired. The kind of tired that comes from trying not to want something. The rain had returned, slow and steady, tapping the windows like it had unfinished business. She was standing by the fireplace, barefoot, wearing a loose cream sweater that hung just off her shoulder. The light caught her skin, warm, almost golden. "You shouldn't be here," she said. I know. She sighed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Then why are you? I didn't have an answer that would make sense. I only knew I'd been thinking about her voice, the way she looked at me that day when Rachel almost walked in, equal parts warning and longing. I can't stop, I said quietly. Her eyes lifted to mine, startled, searching. Eli, I tried, I said. I tried to stay away. Something in her expression cracked then, not all at once, but enough. She stepped closer, her arms folded like she needed to hold herself still. Do you have any idea what you're doing? She whispered. Yes. Her breath caught. You think this is simple? No, but it's real. She turned away, pressing her palms to the edge of the table. The silence between us pulsed. When I reached for her hand, she didn't pull away immediately. Her skin was cool, trembling slightly. I felt her pulse jump beneath my thumb. Clara, I said, her name catching on my breath. She closed her eyes. You don't understand how this looks. I don't care how it looks. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. You will. The room seemed smaller with every second. The fire popped. The rain whispered against the glass. She turned then, and I was suddenly too close, close enough to feel the warmth of her, the faint scent of her hair, the rhythm of her breathing brushing against my throat. Her hand came up, stopped midway, then rested lightly against my chest. I don't want to hurt you, she said. You won't. Her eyes flicked down, then back up. You don't know that. I know you, I said. She let out a soft, uneven breath, half a laugh, half surrender. You shouldn't. I already do. For a moment, neither of us moved. The air felt heavy, thick with things neither of us could unsay. Her fingers curled against my shirt. I could feel her heartbeat through the fabric. She leaned in slightly, close enough that her lips almost brushed mine. Then a sound, a knock at the door. We both froze. Her hand dropped. My breath caught. She didn't look away when she whispered, "Don't move." And somehow I didn't. The knock didn't stop. It came again, sharper, impatient. Clara's eyes darted to the door, then back to me. Stay here, she whispered. She opened it just wide enough to block the view inside. A voice, low male, carried through the gap. Didn't think you'd still be up, he said. My stomach twisted. Her ex-husband. I didn't need to see him to know. The tone, the way she went still, shoulders straightening like she'd rehearsed that posture 1,000 times. What do you want, Mark? She asked. Rachel said she saw someone leaving here the other night. Figure I'd check in. Her jaw tightened. You don't get to check in anymore. He laughed softly. Still the same, huh? Always pretending nothing's happening. His words hit like static. Rachel. She'd told him. My pulse climbed. Clara glanced back, barely but enough. Her eyes said everything. Don't come out. The door closed after a few long minutes. I heard the click of the lock, then silence. When she turned, her expression was unreadable. How much did you hear? She asked. Enough. Her hand brushed across her face, smudging the faint trace of mascara. He's not supposed to know you were here. Rachel told him. She's protective, Clara said quickly, but her voice wavered. She doesn't understand. She's the reason I met you, I said. And now she's Eli. Her voice cut through mine. Stop. I did. Mostly because she looked like she might break if I didn't. She stepped closer, so close I could smell rain on her hair again. Her hands hung at her sides, clenched. This can't happen, she whispered. But it already is. Her eyes met mine, wide, uncertain, pleading. You don't get what this will cost me. Rachel will never forgive me. And Mark, it doesn't matter. He does, she said, her voice cracking, because he still thinks he can. Something in her tone, the quiet fury of it, made me reach for her. She didn't pull away this time. My thumb brushed her cheek. She exhaled, shaky, torn between fight and surrender. You shouldn't touch me like that, she said. Then tell me to stop. Her breath hitched. I can't. The moment folded in on itself. Silence, thunder in the distance, her hand catching the fabric of my shirt. But before I could move closer, she stepped back, every part of her trembling. Eli, you need to go. I don't want to. I'm not asking what you want. Her voice was soft now, not angry, afraid. I'm asking you to make this easier for both of us. I stared at her for a long moment. Her lips parted like she might say something else, but nothing came. So I turned toward the door. Just before I stepped out, she said my name quietly, like a confession that had waited too long. I looked back. Her eyes were glassy, her voice unsteady. If you come back, don't knock. When I came back, the rain was heavier than before, angry, almost desperate. The lights in her house were low, the same warm amber that made everything look softer, more fragile. I didn't knock. She was by the window, arms folded, watching the rain blur the world outside. When she heard me, she didn't turn right away. "I told you not to," she said quietly. "I know." She sighed, still facing the glass. "You shouldn't be here." Then tell me to leave. Her reflection hesitated. Then, slowly she turned. Something in the room shifted, like the air had been holding its breath too long. Clara looked different. Or maybe I was finally seeing her without the distance she'd built between us. The lines around her eyes were deeper tonight, but her gaze was steady, unguarded. "I thought I could stop thinking about you," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "But every time it rains, it's like you're here again." I stepped closer. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Her laugh was small, tired. "It is, because it's not supposed to be this." She took a step toward me. Our bodies found that thin line between too close and not enough. I could feel the heat of her, the faint tremor in her breath. Her hand lifted halfway, then fell. "You're making this harder." "I'm just here," I said. "You're the one who keeps letting me stay." That landed somewhere deep. She closed her eyes for a second, then opened them again, softer now, almost defeated. "You don't understand," she whispered. "People will talk. Rachel will hate me. I'll hate myself." "Do you?" "What?" "Hate yourself." Her lips parted. No words, just breath. I saw the answer in her face before she said anything. She reached for me first this time. Her fingers touched the side of my neck, barely there, tracing the space where my pulse jumped. I didn't move. Her voice shook when she finally spoke. "You're too young to know how dangerous this is, and you're too brave to pretend it isn't." Her hand lingered, then slid down, resting flat against my chest. The air between us was electric, heavy with everything we hadn't said. "Tell me what you want," I said. Her eyes searched mine, full of ache and decision. "For once," she said, "I don't want to be careful." The space closed. Her forehead rested against mine, soft, trembling, real. Neither of us spoke. The storm outside cracked like a warning, but she didn't flinch. We stood there, suspended. Too much history, too much hesitation, too much need. When she finally pulled back, her voice was steady again. "Now you understand," she said. "Understand what?" "That wanting something doesn't make it simple." I nodded. "But it makes it real." Her eyes softened, and this time, she didn't deny it. Outside, the rain began to fade. Inside, neither of us moved. By morning, the rain was gone. What was left was softer, the kind of light that turns everything forgiving. Clara stood in the doorway, barefoot, her sweater hanging loose, her hair still damp from the mist outside. She looked both exactly the same and entirely different. I sat at the kitchen table, watching the steam rise from 2 cups of coffee we weren't drinking. The silence between us didn't feel dangerous anymore. Just quiet, honest. "Do you regret it?" I asked finally. She didn't answer right away. She stared at her hands, twisting the edge of her sleeve, then looked up. "No, but I'm terrified I should." I smiled faintly. "That's fair." She smiled back, slow, small, real. "You always say the wrong thing at exactly the right time." She crossed the room, moving carefully like the air between us still mattered. But when she stopped beside me, she reached out and brushed a hand through my hair, a gesture so unthinking it startled us both. "I didn't plan any of this," she said. "I know." Her hand lingered near my face. "You should be out there falling in love with people who don't have this much history." "I didn't choose the history," I said quietly. "I just chose you." That silenced her. For a second, her throat moved like she was going to speak, but nothing came. Instead, she sat down beside me. Our shoulders touched barely. Outside, the wet branches tapped the windows, steady, rhythmic, like the world had settled. She leaned her head against my shoulder. "People will talk," she said. "Let them." She laughed softly, more breath and sound. "You make it sound simple." "It isn't," I said. But neither are we. She turned toward me, her cheek brushing my sleeve. You're too young to sound like that. Then maybe you're the reason. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The coffee had gone cold. The light had grown brighter. And her hand, resting on my arm, felt like something she'd been trying not to do for years. Finally, she whispered, I don't know what happens next. Then we'll find out. She lifted her head, studying my face like she was memorizing it. Then, instead of words, she pressed her forehead to mine. It wasn't a kiss, but it felt closer than one. A quiet promise that we'd already crossed the line we'd tried so hard to avoid. When she pulled back, she smiled small, knowing. The rains finally stopped. Good, I said, but I kind of wish it hadn't. Her laugh was soft, warm, and this time unguarded. She reached for my hand across the table, and I didn't hesitate. Fingers intertwined, simple as breathing. No hiding left. Just us. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?